will dismantle the NHS. So I spoke to you just a few weeks ago here before the IJB approved a budget for 24-25. I told you that if that budget went through, we would see cuts to staff and the NHS that would impact on the health of children and older adults and every single one of us as we tried to access health services in Glasgow. Now we know the details of the cuts, and there will be cuts to health visitors, cuts to treatment room staff, cuts to hospital at home, a service that keeps people out of hospital, and there will be cuts to complex needs service. This is a service that supports the most vulnerable people in our community. There will also be cuts to mental health services and to admin services, and that's just a few of them. There's more. Now, when people experience ill health, it impacts not just directly on their health, but it means that they can earn less money and they live in poverty. So when these cuts bite, they will increase poverty, inequality and ill health experienced by all Glaswegians, but the poorest will suffer more. And there's world-recognised evidence that tells us that in 2002, the poorest 10% of men in Glasgow died 12 and a half years earlier than the wealthiest. And by 2019, that had rose from 12 and a half years to 15 and a half years. Now, in some areas of Glasgow, men can expect to die 17 and a half years earlier than those living in wealthier areas. So in Greater Govan, the average life expectancy for men is 65 and a half years. And in Pollokshaws, just a few miles up the road, it's 83 years. That's shocking. 17 and a half years earlier than other people because they live in poverty, and poverty brings ill health just the same as ill health brings poverty. So the people who will take the decisions tomorrow to cut these health services have told us that they would not choose to cut these services, that they see the value in them, they see the value in these services, and they are doing it because the government has not given them enough money. The same people told us that they know the choices they make now will not necessarily be felt tomorrow, but they will be felt for years to come. Now, a wee bit of a history lesson here. After the Second World War, the health service was created. Now, it wasn't created because they felt sorry for the poor, unhealthy working classes. It was created because we'd just been through 2 world wars, and the people they were trying to conscript to fight in them were not fit enough to go. So they created the health service because they knew we had had enough, and they told us things would be different after the war if we fought. They did not do that out of the kindness of their heart. We had to fight for it, and we had to die for it. Now, we are not going to put up with poverty and inequality and ill health anymore. We have learned the lessons, and we know that when we stand together and we fight, we can win. Now, we've done that in Glasgow, and we have a proud history of doing that. The women in this city did it during the war, the First World War, when they went on a rent strike, and they won. They won. And in the 1970s, Jimmy Reid and the men of this city locked themselves in the shipyards to protect jobs. In the 1980s, this city, probably most of us standing here right now, we refused to pay the poll tax, and we led the way in getting the poll tax cut out. It's changed. And more recently, just 5 years ago, the women of this city had had enough, and they said, we're not putting up with this unequal pay any longer. And they went on strike, backed not just by the women in this city, but by every family in this city. And what happened? They won. They won. So, I told you a few weeks ago, the fight was starting now. The fight continues. And this will be a fight we can win. But we started last few weeks ago, and we are starting now. We are demanding that the IJB members refuse to vote through these cuts tomorrow. And we are demanding that the politicians of all parties commit to adequately funding the NHS. And if they don't, then we will make our voices heard at the ballot boxes later this year. So comrades, don't doubt for 1 minute that this is a fight we can win, because we are Glaswegians and we know how to fight. Solidarity, comrades. Yeah.